13 seconds.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Atlantic Bushcraft Adventures. Tonight, episode 80, and it is that second Monday in the month, which of course means we are going to be chatting about some Gear of the Month stuff. So this month, we're going to be talking about cookpots, and anybody that's been out in the woods a little bit of time knows that it's kind of important the pot you pick to go out. There's a lot that goes into it than just, oh, hey, I can cook something in this. Ultimately, yeah, something's better than nothing, but with a little bit of education, education's still a harsh word. Let's go with a little bit of information. You can make some more informed decisions about what could potentially work better for you when you're out in the woods. Ben and I, we've been farting around the woods for a little while now. We've tried a few different cook systems and cook pots, and we kind of got to know what we like and what we dislike. So hopefully we can chat a little bit about that tonight. Maybe steer some of you guys and gals that are potentially looking at upgrading or getting a cook set, and hopefully you can learn from some of the things that we've done in the past and what we found with some of the stuff we're going to talk about. Much like we do with every other month, we have some right across the board from very budget friendly to not so budget friendly. And as the price goes up, it's not that you're buying a more expensive piece of equipment just to own it. You are getting some noticeable advantages. And at that price point, we still think it's a fairly good deal.
Yeah. This is a very interesting topic in the fact that I think it's probably the broadest amount of money you can spend. Literally, you could go out with a pot that costs you pennies to a pot that literally costs you $100. Which, when you think about the span of it, is pretty big. And when I say pennies, I literally mean pennies. I have I have camped with an apple juice can as my pot before. Cut the top off, put a piece of baling wire on it, and that was it. That was my pot. So literally pennies. I've gone to the dollar store and bought little stainless steel canisters and used those as my pot. Nice rounded bottom, puts in the fire really well. Really holds up. The only problem I had was the lid actually had plexiglass on. I didn't like that, so I wouldn't put that near the heat. But that's some really budget options. And there's always something you can get that you can cook in. It's just as you sort of go up through these tiers, you start to see where there's some true advantages to spending a little bit more money. And a lot of it has to do with convenience, durability, safety. There's definitely a safety aspect here, and so on and so forth. So we have a lot to talk about. It's a great subject, I think. Um, you did real good at picking this one, Robert.
It was
But
something we had talked about in the past, and much like you said, it's a great topic. If you go in the woods for any amount of time, you're going to have to eat.
yeah, this is going to be the fun one trying to stay on topic. As every all our viewers probably know, we love to wander off topic a bit, and this one is full of pitfalls and traps, but
We're going to
we'll
try our
do our
very best. And of course, we have Jeremy with us. He is going to be supporting and cheering us on from the sidelines. And much like Jeremy, I forgot to mention, nice haircut, Ben. That is very stylish for you.
I'm working on it. Thanks. Um, I picture with Jeremy sitting in the background. I just picture the Muppets. You remember the two old guys?
Oh, yeah. I know exactly what you're thinking of.
Is Gary there?
Let's see. Pure titanium. Interesting. So, just a quick comment that Jeremy threw out here is he's recently started leaving all his titanium pots and cups home, and he
Yeah,
switched to a pure titanium wok. It literally does everything, and that's something we are going to talk about a little into the show. You can get multi uses out of things, and I know other people that have used woks and stuff like that, and they have their advantages, disadvantages depending on what you're doing. But he's very much of the same similar mindset. He takes his wok and literally does everything with it, and it's not a
yeah,
bad thing to do. So
no,
why don't we jump into it a little bit there, Ben? Try and keep us on topic a little bit, at least not get derailed first thing off. Um, so a cook pot really is a way to sustain yourself in the woods. Basically, it's what you eat, cooks your food, potentially decontaminates your water. Maybe it's what you're drinking your water out of, as we'll get into a little bit longer, but it is still very important. And there are some basic things I guess we should talk about before we go too far down into our recommendations and stuff, let's talk a little bit about material, Ben, before we start jumping into them, because we are going to mention some different materials as we go down. There seems to be three major ones on the market that most people, or four major ones on the market that most people will kind of get to. And it's going to be aluminum, stainless steel, titanium, which is going to be your big three that you're going to see anytime you look up like Camp Cup or something like that.
Yep.
Then you can get into like the enamel coated steels. I've even seen
Cast iron.
I was going to say cast iron, and I've even seen. It looked like brass, but I'm surely it could not be brass. Because I'm thinking there would be some sort of metal leaching in there. And that's another thing. If you see something and you're not sure of the metal it's made out of, a quick search could potentially tell you if it's safe or not safe. Because, I mean, with the internet comes a very broad spectrum of where you can shop, but not everywhere has the same regulations and stuff when you're buying things. So, potentially, what is safe to buy somewhere else for cooking may not meet the same standards here, and you kind of got to use your own judgment there.
So let's start with the ones we'll generally eliminate first. And cast iron. Personally, I love cast iron, but it weighs a ton. It weighs as much as cast iron. But like a good cast iron frying pan, or the what do they call it, like the Dutch oven style pot with a lid. You can boil food in it. You can fry food in it. You can bake food in it. You can bury it in coals and roast stuff in it. You can make cakes in it. I mean, you can do almost anything with it. And its size and its ability to absorb and hold the heat makes it an awesome cook item. The fact, though, that and I have small ones that I take, they do weigh a lot. Like even my small ones are in the pounds. Like my
Yep.
smallest one, the lid itself, I think weighs close to a pound, and it's enough to do like a single loaf of bread for like just not like a family size loaf, like an individual
Individual.
bigger than a bun type loaf, like a small carrot cake or something, and it weighs a lot. But it is nice. It's durable. It's tough. It's very usable. And my thought with that when I do use it is that I have something very specific I'm going to do with that. There's a
Mm-hmm.
goal with that. If you have a base camp somewhere you're going to go and you're going to spend a lot of time with, this is an item you can get. I remember Canadian Tire sold a beautiful crate set, and I bet you the thing itself weighed 60 to 70 pounds. The crate, with all the frying pan, Dutch ovens, and everything else that came with it. Beautiful set, awesome ability. You can cook some amazing meals in it. You are not going to go hiking in long portages carrying cast iron for very long. Not as a small. If you had a big group, maybe you could designate that for one person and everyone's cooking out of it. You'll kind of get away with it. When you get away from that, you got your enamel, and I think that was really the cook set of our grandfathers. It was sort of their lightweight thing, and it's still, it has its uses, but it has its disadvantages. You mentioned one before we started was the chipping.
Mm-hmm. And once it chips, it rusts, much like the cast iron. Before we go too far by that, as you said, cast iron is great for a camp. Um, Cast iron has some prep work you have to maintain with it too. They can rust, and they have to be seasoned. They're almost indestructible, but if they do break, like I've seen handles snap off, they're almost impossible to weld back on. Cast
Oh, you
iron's a little
can't.
tricky that way, and even if you welded it, would you want to cook with it again? You know what I mean? Um, and yeah, the enamel, it's the chipping. As we were talking before the show, I had a set that we'll talk about here later on, and I never used the frying pan, but just being packed up and put away in my gear, the handle must have bent a little bit. Took a chip out of it, and it pretty much rotted the handle off. Like it's just a big rust strip through it to the point where it was starting to travel down into the pan itself, and I just didn't really feel safe cooking with it anymore, honestly, or at all. So it kind
Yeah.
of got that turf.
From there we have like your stainless steel, uh, relatively heavy, relatively indestructible, um, fairly good stuff. Good. It's the middle of the range for this stuff. It almost has the durability of cast iron, but it also almost has the weight, but it's a little stickier. Like when you're cooking, food tends to stick to it. I find anyways. Um, so you can get them. It's not something you see a lot of people packing in. Once you get down to that packing, now you're talking generally your aluminums and your titaniums. Um, Aluminum is definitely cheaper and has the rumor of some association with potentially Alzheimer's and stuff. I think that's generally now considered a myth, but there are poor quality aluminums and good quality aluminums. So if you find a poorer one, they will get pitted and deteriorate. Good ones tend to really last. And then you get to your titaniums, and those things are almost all but indestructible and considered fairly light. But depending on your setup, it's interesting to weigh them. I have actually found that they don't always save you as much as you kind of expect. You're already on the low end when you're down to some of these products. So you're literally talking grams here, oftentimes in savings. Uh, but grams count, they add up. So you're
No,
trying to get
100% they
those.
do.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, stainless steel for me. I'm a big fan of stainless steel, but that's just where I'm at with where I go out. Aluminum. We had talked about the Alzheimer's myth there, and it's the aluminum oxiding that they say leads to Alzheimer's, and there's no 100% definitive proof on that to begin with. There's still a little speculation on that. So, I mean, we're not doctors. We're not telling you, oh, yeah, it's perfectly safe, or oh, no, it's going to kill you, or anything like that. It's just do your own research, see what you think. My research led me to believe if you get ionized aluminum, as long as it's completely ionized, it's 100% safe. Then you start getting into that murky waters of if it gets scratched, well, potentially you're getting aluminum oxide seeping through. Maybe, maybe not. They all tend to agree that, like, the old timey aluminum pots that were like raw aluminum, they do release a little bit of aluminum oxide into your foods and stuff. Now, is that enough to actually hurt you in any way? That's up to you. You know what I mean? So, and with titanium, as Ben said, is kind of like, I don't want to say the gold standard, but it's kind of the gold standard. It's got all the benefits of everything else, with very few of the drawbacks, except for the cost. And
Yeah.
I've only cooked with titanium a couple times, but I did find it didn't stick as bad as stainless steel. Am I correct in that? Like it tends to
I
roll off a
find
little better.
it's pretty. I don't have a ton of titanium. I have some titanium forks, knives, and spoons. I have a little kit here that we'll talk about. And I am in sort of in the market for another size up. Um, and I say that, and maybe that's what we should talk to about a little bit more before we go into specifics, is size. You really have to consider your size when you make a trip. Um, Taking a small pot like this one, I think it's like
750
six.
mils.
Yeah, the top line on it is 500, so probably 750, 600 reasonably. That's an okay pot, but you're going to just get maybe 2 cups of water out of that. Like two people can have a tea out of that. It's difficult to cook a meal for two people out of this. It's great for me. If it's just me going in, I'm taking a reasonable amount of food. I can do it with a small pot like that. But if you got yourself and somebody else, be it a buddy or a significant other or a kid, now you're really looking at wanting to be aiming towards at least a liter to 2 liter pot. It's really going to open up your options and stuff. I was out last weekend. We did some, and this turned out awesome. Ask anyone who was there. I did dehydrated spaghetti squash, spaghetti sauce, and ground beef. Um, and it turned out awesome, packed out low, and I cooked it in this pot. And this here, I think, is about a 2 quart pot, little aluminum pot. It's got an anti-stick coating throughout it, and it cleans up nice. And this was about perfect for two people. Now I had more than two people, so I ended up doing like multiple runs. Everyone had a bit, and then everyone had a bit second time. Um, but yeah, you have to judge your pot size by what you plan on cooking. And so you really need to sort of think about what you're going to be doing, who you're going with, and make sure that you choose the appropriate pot cook system for the crowd going. Um, and that varies from person to person, meal to meal. So really think things through. Um, Thoughts there?
No,
Add-ons.
I completely agree. It's one of the things we're going to talk to or talk about as we go through some of our recommendations here. But you hit the nail right on the head. You have to base the size of your pot on its functionality versus what you need it to do while you're in the woods. And yeah, we'll go over that a little bit more as we move in, because I think that'll explain it a little better as we go. But I think you summed it up perfect.
So hand in hand with size is shape. And do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Once again, we're going to see that a little bit in our recommendations, and we'll talk about it there too. But general shape does play a big part. Um, Ben and I were talking before the show about like the narrow but tall pots. They kind of resemble like a big cup, and they're great for one person if you're going to be cooking on a steady surface or a little butane stove or something like that. But not so good if you gotta. I mean, you can do it. It's just not as easy if you gotta cook on uneven ground or coals or something like that. It has a tendency to get top heavy and topple or something like that. You just don't got the base to hold it up. And it doesn't spread everything out as much when you're heating it, so you can run into some uneven heating issues. But you kind of got to bring that into it. If you're gonna, I guess my opinion on that is the ultimate pot is something that's not too tall, not too round, somewhere in between that holds enough liquid for you. And I guess that's the ultimate goal when you're camping or bushcrafting or hiking or whatever your out in the woods hobby happens to be and you're taking cook stuff is you gotta find that balance uh, for you as an individual and for how you go adventuring in the woods. A bushcrafting pot may be different than a hiking pot because, you'll get into a little different terrain, a little different camp setups. This all has to play a factor into it.
Yeah, for me, I kind of like a pot that's a little wider than it is tall. And that's because I find it's much more functional. The bottom heats up more evenly, so you can, I find like things boil quicker. There's things I can cook in it better. Like if I want to put, if you want to cook something rather than boil something, it fits into it better. So it gives you some definite options having that flat pot. But the tall ones tend to be fairly popular, I think, because it's a little bit more convenient to carry.
And that's
And
exactly it. A lot of them can fit into the water bottle pouch on your backpack and stuff like that. You know what I mean? If you get them the right size. And I see the appeal. I myself carry something that's somewhat similar in a way for that reason. It's easy to pack up, it nests well, it's great. But ultimately, what I carry on my like overnight trips is not what I would carry if I was going to the woods for, say, 4 or 5 nights.
no, no. And this is why in my basement I have a giant Rubbermaid container full of pots, pans, and other cooking utensils.
I just thought you were ready to move at a moment's notice. I mean,
I have literally everything from Paterno big frying pans to little tiny ones you can cook like a single cookie on. That's what it came with. We bought little tiny cast iron frying pans that came with like cookie mix for the kids, and I keep them. Like I'm going to cook an egg on that in the woods, and I've taken them. Pots, I have pots that are like not much bigger than a cup to fairly big because depending on what I'm going to do, I'm going to want those different pots. And I pick them up at yard sales, good sales on Amazon and stuff. So everything we tell you here, like you can really look around and discover some awesome deals for this stuff. And I highly recommend that Amazon and Mech and Decathlon, I think, just opened up here in Nova Scotia. These places all have some great outdoor stuff, but the reality is you can go into Walmart, into Sobeys, into Superstore, into the dollar store and get some awesome backwoods cooking setups. I've seen some neat little kettles and stuff in the Bargain Giant, in Giant Tiger, places like this, all over the place. So really keep your eye open. Depending on where you're to, R.R. Rossi. I don't know if you've ever been to an R.R. Rossi.
nope, can't say as I have.
It's kind of like a department store that sells a little bit of everything. There's one in Bridgewater. They're pretty popular in Newfoundland. Places like this, you'd be surprised what you can find in yard sales. So take our suggestions with a bit of grain of salt on this one because it's by no means an exhaustive list, but it's really to get you down the right path, I think. to knowing what we think you should look for, and not necessarily what you need to have. So you want to? I think we normally go what, lowest to highest, or is there another topic we should discuss first?
No, I think that's the basis. And anybody wondering, we just kind of want to set the groundwork for what we're going to talk about because we do have one, two, three, four, five, six recommendations up there, and we're gonna give our pros and cons from our point of view, and we just kind of want you to know what we were talking about when we mentioned some stuff. When we say like, oh, it's tall, so it may not do this, or oh, it's a little shorter, so it might do that better, or something like that. You know our basis behind that. But I think we're good there. Do you just want to jump right into it? First one up's one of yours there, Mr.
Huh?
Greening.
I got one. Yes, budget. Okay, so this is one I think you said it was one of mine, but I know we share this one. I don't particularly own this one. I have camped with them. People have taken them. I've always kind of admired it from a distance. I've often seen them at Princess Auto for sale. So I know you can get this one around a lot, and there's varying prices. They're cheaper in the States for some reason, like significantly at times.
Everything is. I think that's just us, and we get soaked sometimes. But like you said, this one comes up everywhere. I've seen it. I think I've seen it at Canadian Tire. I know I've seen it at Cabela's, Bass Pro, whatever you want to call it. I've seen it at Princess Auto. Like you said, like this is a very readily available setup, and that's kind of why I had it in my list as well. That's that was one of
So
the
I
reasons I
believe
brought it up.
there is a little piece of plastic on the handle to these that tends to get lost or broken pretty quickly.
Right there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
take
that
that,
that.
break it off, fire it in the woods, put a piece of wire on it. You'll be so much
Yeah.
better off.
So you're going to try to save that piece of plastic, guaranteed, and you're going to eventually lose it. But this is a nice little thing. The two cups nest together; they can fit in if you want them. The cover goes on, so it's a fairly compact little setup. It's really good for a day hike or a day trip. You could definitely do an overnight with it. The limitation is you're pretty well down to just boiling food, so it's good for like cup of soups, boiling water for your drinks and stuff. You're not going to, and everyone's going to prove me wrong somehow. You're not going to be like baking bread in this thing. You're not going to be cooking up a steak in this thing. I mean, there are ways, I'm sure, but it's not the ideal one for that. But it's a really good, quick, simple setup, and it's fairly compact. And I think it's a pretty solid setup. You go with this setup, especially like I said, for like an overnight or a day trip.
I have actually used this set, and what this set to me screams out is like you said, day trip. It's soup and coffee,
Yep.
and it is awesome for that. If you want to go out and make some Mister Noodles or ramen or whatever it is from wherever you are, a couple of cups of coffee or some tomato soup, mushroom soup, some chunky soup, whatever the case may be. You and a buddy, you and a significant other, whatever, you're just going out for an overnighter. This thing rules because it is very nestable. It's not overly heavy. I don't really care for the plastic cups. This actually comes in. I've seen two different styles of this where it's like a really clunky plastic and then there's kind of like a thermal plastic. And I think this one here is the thermal plastic. It's like a double walled plastic instead of just a solid plastic, and it tends to hold the heat better. My original one was like just one solid chunk of plastic with no air in between, so there's no thermal barrier. Things
Yeah.
got cold really fast.
Yeah.
That was my downfall to it. But yeah, it's like a two person uh, basic camp out. Maybe you know a walk off or something like that. Not really viable for going in the woods for multi days, but it really met the need of something that was affordable and two people really get along well with it. And I keep going to that soup example because that's how I used mine. Um, it literally held
No.
one can of soup, the two cups, the lid, all that snapped together. We made the soup. You add water, kind of dealio. We drank the soup out of the cups, and then we turned around and made tea. And it worked perfect for
Yeah.
that. I mean, it was flawless. However, it has that real narrow footprint on the bottom, and it's very tall. We were cooking directly on fire. It kind of got buggersome as the coals died down to want to sloop over and try and dump itself out into the fire, which wasn't great. But still, I think I paid less for it than that. I think I picked it up for $20, but we're also
Yeah.
talking several years ago as well. So I don't think that's an unreasonable price for what you're getting nowadays. And as Ben said, that little tab there, as soon as you buy this, as he said, you're going to try and save that. You're not going to save it. Save yourself the aggravation. Just break it off and go get a good sized keyring loop and thread through it, and it's the exact same thing, and it's not going to break.
Yeah. So, um, all I'm going to say with that tall, thin profile, when you go to put that on your alcohol stove, your little canister stove, you lose a lot of your heat up the sides and out. So you're not getting the most efficient use of your stove on that necessarily. Just keep that in mind when you're using it. Know that there is a bit of wastage there. Slightly broader base or something that could transfer the heat a little bit better would help there. But it's not horrible by any means, and it does work well. Like you said, you have some great options, um, and it nests super well. So I think it's a solid contender for a day trip and maybe a small overnighter. But that is about where to me it's for me personally it would top out. I think shortly after that I would start to tire of it and wish I had something a bit more versatile. So what do we have next?
So the next one up, I believe, is actually the one I threw in there. And this is the all famous, and I say that semi sort of ironically, semi sort of jokingly, but not really because everybody seems to know what one is, the old GI Cup. You can
And
pick
it's
these
the
up in
same
a.
price.
Sorry?
This is the same price as the Stanley, by the way.
And the only downside to this one from the Stanley is you don't get the individual cups in it. The
Yeah.
advantage is this kind of it's everything in one. I carry one very readily for up to 2 nights. If it's just me, I'm fine with this, and I carry mine to set up much like this. And this is why I like this. I can put my canteen directly in it. The canteen I think I bought at the old Army Navy surplus that was off the highway up by you for like a buck.
Yeah.
Um, and then the pot itself, well, not really a pot, it's a cup. It's just big enough for an individual meal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you can still use it for making tea, coffees, and stuff like that. For me, just me going into the woods, this is all I really need. It's not the best solution, um, but it is all I need. And when it comes to weight and its nestability and the fact I can put the canteen in it, as I was telling you, I take this a lot when I go hunting or just off on day hikes and stuff like that because I can literally drop my pack somewhere. And if I want to go exploring, I can put this in that little black satchel with my canteen, throw it over my shoulder, and if for some reason I get turned around and whatnot, I can still sit down, make a cup of tea. I generally carry a package of oatmeal in that as well. That gives me a quick snack. At least I'm going to get through the night without the hunger pains gnawing at me. And it's kind of like its own little kit in its own. And it's one of the reasons I tend to gravitate towards it. But once again, it has this terrible shape to it on the bottom. It's not bad for resting on coals. It's actually pretty good at that because it has that C shape. But what
Yeah.
I don't find it good for is going on butane stoves or alcohol stoves or stuff like that. The heat just never really seems to get around it. They do make a little stand for this, which I never really bought into. You can look that up. It's probably at the bottom of this one if I look hard enough. Funny enough, it's not. But anyway, it literally supposed to nest in the cup too, and it gives you a platform where you can set this on. Maybe that's a thing. I just didn't care for the added weight, but that's my only gripe. I
Actually,
can't.
so the little stand for it, and somebody might tell me I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. The little stand for it is designed to take those Esbit tablets,
Oh, maybe so. I never even thought about that.
and so there's a little hole in it, and you light one of those, put it in, and it'll boil that cup with that stand over the Esbit. It basically traps all the heat in, heats up the bottom, and cooks. And so when I was a reservist, I was in the military. Um, when we were in there, we had this basic setup. I don't think we always had the lids. Seems to me the lid's a bit of a luxury, and I love the idea of the lid. Like I like this kit, but we would boil the water and we would put our MREs right in the pot because they fit nice. And that's how you heated up your MREs and ate it, and then you had that hot water for teas or whatever. So it's a very militaristic setup. If you're into that tactical feel, if you like the military canteen and the little bag that a carrot comes in, and they come with nice straps, and you can hook them to your belt. This is a very functional setup, and I think that it really fits a lot of people's styles and form and function. So it's a good system. It's not one that I presently have, and I haven't used one of these since I left the military, actually.
Well, you're probably a little
Uh,
hateful towards them now.
no, I,
Heater packs? No. Oh, I guess not heater packs. MREs.
yeah,
Actually, I
uh,
liked
M
MREs. So
MREs are good. The trick with MREs, in my opinion, is to take additional seasoning
yeah,
because they are, in my opinion, bland. But I mean, I really do like flavor, and I add a lot of hot peppers and stuff to my food. So, um, but yeah, no, this isn't about how I cook. This is about what I cook with. So, a good system, very popular system, and shop around. Like you said, if you can get into an army surplus, you can pick up most of the system for pretty cheap. The lid might actually be your most expensive component.
yeah. The lid was the hardest to find as well. Like you said, it almost seemed like it was a luxury. I did get one off these GI kits between Mel and I at the Army Navy surplus, but I couldn't find a lid there. I ended up having to get the lid online, and I ended up buying this whole set to replace one of the aluminum. This also comes in aluminum. I think I mentioned that at a cheaper price. And I ended up buying this entire stainless steel one to replace the aluminum one because the aluminum one was getting crushed. So,
So to save weight, you can always, and this does work with a lot of systems. A piece of tinfoil makes an awesome lid,
yes, I
and
100% agree.
weighs significantly less than most lids. So if you really want to save a few pounds, uh, even on some of the stuff we're going to talk about later, you can just toss the lid and replace it with a small piece of tinfoil. It doesn't need the strong structural strength. It's just trying to hold the heat in. So it is an option. It doesn't work as great when you're trying to strain things and stuff like that, but just know that that's something that you can potentially do. If you don't have the lid and you want to make do in the meantime, a little piece of aluminum will get you a long way. So I guess we might as well, like, there's not a lot more to say with that. Great system, very popular. Shop around. I've seen these things in Princess Auto, in Army surpluses, and even sometimes in some of the big box stores. Um,
Once again, they're pretty readily available. It's the lid you may have a little bit of trickiness with. But you can buy that individually online.
so, um,
So next up, we're on to this 10-piece cook set that you had in here.
yeah. This setup, it's a pretty all-encompassing one. For 50 bucks, you're getting a kettle, a pot, uh, kind of a fry pan like thing. The lid folds in. So I have a similar setup here. I'm going to show you. Like, this is very similar to a setup I've used in the past. You got the small frying pan one, the bigger pot, and in my case, I have another pot inside, so I have a small pot. Um, and what I will do is, for anyone listening, I'm just holding a pot like an idiot.
What is the
Uh,
sound?
um, this one has that little kettle, and I always like that little kettle design. And I've seen similar kettle designs in the past in stores and stuff, and tempted to buy just that kettle. And like you see here, it shows that the whole thing kind of nests together. So with this setup, 50 bucks, you can fry your eggs, make your tea, and make a soup. You have a lot of options. This will pretty well, this little setup, which probably, I bet you the temperatures or the weights there somewhere, it's not all that heavy. Does that come with the stove? No.
No. Let's see. Weight of this is 1.7 kilo or 1.78 kilograms.
So, and that's probably
953
shipping weight.
grams.
Yeah, 2 pounds.
That doesn't make sense. Why
Yeah,
is weight 1.78 kilograms and then item weight 953 grams?
probably
Those
shipping weight.
numbers don't make sense.
Probably shipping weight with boxes and stuff.
Yeah, so item weight 953 grams. Let's go with that one.
So let's call it 2 pounds. For 2 pounds, you're getting cups, fork, knife, and spoon set up there, I think. A
Yes,
kettle, pot. You can drop any of these items out if you don't want to use them, right? You don't need the carabiner. You don't necessarily need the little baggies, but I bet you those are probably insulated little cups. I don't know much about that. You got a knife, fork, and spoon, two cups, a kettle, a pot, a frying pan with lids. Uh, you can go weak with this setup. Honest to God, you can.
yeah, and it's aluminum, so as you said, it's coming in nice and light. This new age aluminum, as I'm going to call it, the stuff that's been out in the last 10, 15 years, far more durable than the stuff that was previous to that. I don't know if they, found new ways of alloying it or whatever, but I do find the newer aluminum holds up significantly better, has better non-stick properties, and it doesn't scratch as easy. Like, you know what I mean? All around, it's more robust.
And that little kettle, I think that's an awesome little kettle. I can boil eggs in that kettle. I can make my tea in that kettle. There's a lot of stuff I could do with just that kettle. I could do a trip with that kettle.
For sure. And this kettle, funny enough, sometimes you can find this at Crappy Tire, just the kettle.
Yeah. I found a very similar one. I don't know if it was the anodized. It may have been the same shape and size. Looked very similar in a few small department stores and stuff. So this, but overall, I bet you that that kettle alone still goes for 20, $25. So in this case, with your utensil set, your cups, your, at $50, I think it's a pretty good deal. I, and it has fairly good ratings here. Uh,
Yeah, it's a 4.5 out of 5 out of 548 rating. So, I mean, most people agree it tends to be all right.
so especially if you're just starting out and you want a kit that can pretty well get you anywhere, this is a kit that will pretty well cover 98% of your needs in the woods, in my opinion, for probably two people.
Yeah, and that's going to be your comfortable areas about two people. You're not. You could get away family cooking with this, but you're going to be a little stressed about it.
I could do my family. I might have to cook, I may have to cook a couple of sets. Like I may not be able to do all my eggs in the frying pan, but I could do enough for me and the wife and then three kids separately. But I could juggle this out. I could make a good trip with this. So I think bang for your buck so far, this might be one of your best bets right here.
Definitely starting out 100%. If you are starting out, you got $50. Start with this. You'll at least know where you want to go from here. You'll get that
Yeah.
option of the kettle, like Ben said. A lot of people just go with a kettle. That is a
Yeah.
very common thing. You also get the pot, the pan, you'll get the cups. You'll find out a little bit what you like and what you don't like.
And honestly, if you get into it, use it for a few years, and then you find stuff like you want to upgrade to all titanium, you want to go to a wok like Jeremy. The only thing that question I kind of have with the wok is like boiling water and stuff. I feel like it would boil it quick, but it would be kind of hard to work with. Um, Me and Jeremy are gonna have a chat with that. Everything else I think would be awesome in the wok, by the way, but not necessarily for the beginner. I think somebody starting out that might be a bit high level. Um, but this system here, I think it's a pretty bulletproof little system. I'm fairly impressed with this one. Um, I'm going to stop shining it up, but yeah,
You want to move on to the next one?
I think we should.
I don't see our runtime here. So I'd rather be outside. I'm not familiar with the name. It sounds familiar, but I can't put a face to it. Ben spoke about the differences about pots, and honestly, my 12 centimeter zebra versus titanium, I'd really just a matter of ounces. I can pretty much do
Yeah.
everything. Yeah, so it just comes down to personal preference with some of this. Weight, once you get into a certain level, you're talking grams, as Ben said. Sometimes, oh, great, it's Chris, of course. That's why I know who it is. Uh, so yeah, it gets down to it's going to be grams in the difference, and depending on how far you're going, maybe that matters to you, maybe that doesn't matter to you.
Yeah, I was telling you, I weighed my here. You dragged it out of me. uh, I got this little titanium cup. Uh, I have enamel one. It's actually slightly smaller, with a fixed handle so it doesn't have the two baling ones and no lid. When I weigh this one with the lid and the enamel one without the lid, the difference is literally like 6 grams. I would have to re-weigh it to be sure. I think when I take the lid off, then the titanium one wins again, but otherwise they're very, very close. It's almost too close to call with my scale. So is titanium lighter? Yes. Is there potentially like is it might be a little bit safer? It's a bit more inert? Yes. Is it worth the extra triple the price in general?
Maybe. Depends. You know
Maybe.
what I mean? It
It,
depends where
that's
you're
a
at.
person, that is a personal call, and I think each of us have to make that for ourselves. I'm not going to tell you go out and spend all your money on titanium gear when you can get a set like that $48 one that I think will do you for years and never once are you going to come back and say, man, the weight of that aluminum kit was killing
Yeah.
me. Right? Like it's not. That's not the problem. But when you are trying to really drop the bulk and drop the weight, going to a smaller, lighter kit starts to make sense when you're doing certain things. I have a couple of trips up coming up soon that we are really going to look at what we can do to be dropping our weight to the absolute minimum to make our trip the most enjoyable. Um, and then it comes down to choices, and you're going to choose between comfort and weight. Comfort when you're in camp or comfort when you're walking to camp or when you're moving gear. And that's a hard debate some days, and it's a whole topic in itself. So pull up the next one because
So next one is a titanium set, and you're actually getting it at a decent price. $50 price point on a titanium set, especially
yeah.
this two-piece one. I think is going to be really good. But this is one of yours, Ben. So why don't you chat it up a little bit there, buddy?
Yeah, so this is a kit I've seen before. I actually think this kit here might actually be big enough to hold this kit in my hand. So in this kit I have in my hand, I think it's a 750 pot, and I'm not sure, it's not wrote anywhere. I think it's like a 500 mil or 400 mil cup that goes inside of it. They nest together really well, and they're really good. If I bought that kit, I think this whole thing could go in it. And with that whole setup, my 750, my 1000, and my 500 pan, uh, I'm back to what the other kid had. I pretty well have a full setup for like a week with two people, no problem. The options are pretty good, and the overall weight. What's the weight of this thing? Is it listed there? Item
Oh yeah,
weight.
it's right up here. It's 181.5 grams.
So there is a savings between the other one, but remember you were getting a pot and two glasses and a fork, knife, and spoon in there. So when you
Hmm.
add all that up, the the weight of say the two pots is probably only like 250. So you're saving 70 grams,
Hmm.
maybe not even. And those had lids. This one pot is the lid. So when you work out that there's a lot of trade-offs here, but there is definitely some
Yeah, and
savings.
this here would suit somebody a little bit more experienced, maybe not potentially, but maybe that wants that nestability where the two pots flip together. Maybe they want to carry their. I'm thinking this would be perfect for the butane stove and burner combo. You could probably drop that inside this. It would all pack together, and it would just take up one cylinder of size. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes, I know exactly.
So it's a 1 liter big pot, a half-liter small pot. A lot of the basic cooking could almost be done with that 500 milliliter small pot because that's 2 cups of water. The big
Yeah.
1 liter one, I mean, you're getting enough in there that two people could probably comfortably eat. You may have to do 2 rounds depending on how hungry you are, but I mean, it's a good set, and it's $51. So let's say $50 for a titanium 1.5 liter cook set. That's pretty good budget or bargain for titanium at that size.
Yeah. So just for 25 bucks, you can buy, I think this is the BSI, yeah, BRS titanium canister stove, and it weighs grams. So you throw that'll easily fit in. That little thing fits in my little cup. So you can come up with a pretty good little setup. And I bet you your canister would actually fit into that. So pretty bomb-proof system that's not going to take up much room in your pack. So you have that compact packability, lightweight setup. And we're what? $3 more expensive than the last kit. And you have all your cooking, but you just don't have your cup and utensils. Um, so yeah, we're still in the $50 range, and we've got some awesome setups that you can grab and go with. So I think that's doing pretty good. Do we have something else after this one?
We do. We have two more after this, actually. This was another one you would put up. And I'm curious to see what you say about this one.
So this one reminds me shape-wise of your um,
GI Cup.
GI cup. So you have a short fry pan version, and then the GI cup version here with the lid, and I think these are titanium,
Yes.
and they're going for how much?
Where were we at? We're at $70 on this one.
$70. So this with the short pack, the short one, the nice wraparound handles, and the lid, uh, really does enhance your GI pack. If you replace the standard stove with this one, you are saving, maybe you're not saving, but you're after the extra pot.
Hmm.
So with the extra pot, you're probably still weighing in similar to the other setup, but you have that extra ability. So you can fry up some eggs in the short one. You can be boiling water in the taller one. Uh,
So this whole kit comes to 212 grams.
yeah. You gonna go back and look at the other one? No,
It was 181.5.
no, no. I mean
Oh, the
the
GI one. Yeah, it's probably heavier than this. I can tell you that just by holding it.
yeah. But yeah, this is a nice setup. I think this would really appeal to our listeners who are into the more military-esque stuff. Yeah, there's kind of the
Oh, sorry.
wood reburner stove. I seen that particular setup in a picture last weekend when I was camping. I use a slightly different version of that, but yeah. So that's another setup. I mean, that one's $70. Still $70 for a cook setup isn't that bad, considering you're getting a titanium setup, you're getting two pots and a lid. Um,
Point
that's
7 pounds.
really going to wrap around your canteen and really not take up that much room. So you, what's the bundle kit then? The bundle shows like a life straw and a canteen.
Oh, that was. I went back to the GI cup just to see what the weight was. So the weight on the
Uh,
GI cup's 280 ish grams, 380
yeah.
ish grams.
So almost half the weight with this titanium one, and you get the extra pot.
Yeah, and it comes with that hanging cable, so I don't know how much that would be in weight, but there's probably a couple grams on top of it as well.
Yeah. So some definite options here. I kind of like this one, honestly. If I was going to go to a GI Cup, I think I'd really consider this setup.
I'm actually
Um,
liking it pretty good. I didn't even know this was such a thing. You taught me something here today.
sorry, Robert, I'm going to cost you a fortune. Every time I talk to you, I think I end up getting convincing you to buy something that you didn't know you needed.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to do that when it comes to camping supplies for me, though.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, no, actually, you got me kind of scratching my head on this one too. It'd be a great upgrade from my GI cup, and I love that ability to have that second little pot because that's one of the drawbacks from my GI cup is you don't always need that size.
No. And when you're trying to like, I want to with the short, broader base type idea. I think of like I take steak. I don't know about anyone else. My first night in the woods, I want like a steak. I'll take a frozen steak. It's gonna thaw out while I travel for the day, and I'm gonna fry it up. I want something I can fry that up on, crisp the edges. With these tall, narrow pots, I can't really get a steak in it. This one, I'll probably have to cut the steak in half and do it in two goes, but I can still do it in the bottom of this short pot.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, it's still a 300 ml cup, so you're holding a bit more than 1 cup of water on there. So it'd be perfect for coffee, or as they suggest here, using it as a bowl.
And you can easily do a couple of sausages. It already curves just like a sausage. I'm just saying.
Just saying that actually is pretty smart. So, interestingly enough, before we go on to the last one we recommended, I looked up that one that Jeremy's talking about, the EBM Pure Titanium Ultralight Chinese Saucepan, 39 centimeters. I think this is the one you're talking about there, Jeremy. Price point, a little more than I'd probably pay for a cooking utensil, to be perfectly honest. Not saying that it wouldn't do everything, just as Jeremy says. Probably does it well. Little out of my
How much?
budget.
How much is it?
472.21.
Yeah, I can camp under that price. Just throwing that out there. I can get a tent, sleeping bag, and pot, pan, everything under that price if I had to.
We know yours was free, Jeremy. We meant for the normal person. Not all of
Um,
us can get free gifts.
this pot here, I'd like to throw an honorable mention in for this because this is one of my favorite items, but it's not available right now. But something to keep an eye on. So I think it was Open Kitchen. I did send you the link, did I not?
Yes. Give me 1 second. I'm going to screw everything up in the process, but give me 1 second.
I love throwing curveballs at you.
All right. We can do this. We just don't need everybody seeing my Facebook at the same time. So, tell them a little bit about the pot, and I'll bring up a picture of it.
So this is a pot, and I'm pretty sure I picked it up for 15, 20 bucks on Amazon. It's got the baling wire, which I love. It doesn't have a handle, which I don't really care for. The handle actually stays up. There's little indents on the side. It's relatively short and fat. To sort of talk about what I was talking about earlier,
Well,
it's
to be fair,
shorter
I'm
than
short
it
and
is
fat
long.
too, so.
That's why we love you, Robert. Short and fat. uh, So I do bacon. I'll take the ready crisp bacon in the morning. I'll throw some of this in the bottom, just throw it over a fire or in the coals or just over the whatever stove. And it works really well. And the other thing is like I have this Bush Buddy style folding up stove. It drops right in there perfect. Like it's gone. Like I can put the lid on. So I can put canister stoves in this. This I think comes in at close to 2 quarts. I don't know what that says in there. Yeah, 2 quarts.
Yeah.
I've measured it out. And it looks taller in that picture than it really is, or at least the version I have.
And honestly, weight's not bad. 250 grams isn't terrible.
No, this is 2 quarts. When we think of everything else we had there, most of it wasn't quite this big. I did up enough spaghetti, dehydrated spaghetti, in this here to feed me and my wife in one go with this. In fact, I did 2 goes. I fed myself, my wife, my camp buddy Chris, and my daughter Skylar. And then my younger two won't eat spaghetti, but I would have had enough for them. I ate more than I needed to, but I enjoyed it. It was really good. This was a pot. This is a pot. I can almost do a full cup. I have done full camping trips. This is the item I take. So
I
it's a
did tell
one
you
pot.
Chris was on with us, right?
Oh, because we have a couple of Chris's.
Moser.
Yeah, yeah. So Chris was, so he ate from this too. So this is a great little pot. I like this
More
pot.
C.
Um,
I forgot. There's
like
a
I
Y at
said,
the end of that, not an R. Sorry, Chris.
lap him around. You're closer to him than I am. Uh, but yeah, this here, I could do a trip with just this here. I didn't pay a lot of money for this, and this is what I want to talk about. If you look around, um, and you find a pot like this, it's really versatile, really useful, and I didn't have to spend a lot of money. I mean, I spent significantly less than that titanium wok, and I think I can cook almost everything he's going to cook. Is the wok functional and cool and lightweight? Sure.
I mean, it's
What's the
pretty
wok weigh?
neat. It is. It's a pretty neat piece of gear. I'm not gonna lie.
How much does it weigh?
Now you're gonna ask me questions I don't know the answer to, aren't you?
I'm gonna.
I think this is it here. Yeah, here we go. It comes in at 1.07 kilograms, or that would that be 1,070 grams?
Yeah.
So, yeah, there we go.
So that's a neat item. It's pretty cool. Um, but at 400 and something bucks, I'm not recommending it.
I don't know,
personally.
man. Like, yeah, I mean, if you can happen upon a great deal on one, like Jeremy did, I'd give this a go. I just don't got the luck that he has with acquiring stuff like this, so it's going to be in my realm of I'll steal his the first time his back's turned.
Yes. So I know where Jeremy lives.
We're going to have to make a shopping trip. I can see it.
And we know that he's only there some of the time because he's camping most
He
of the
has
rest
to
of
be
the
camping with the amount of videos he puts out. And if anybody's listening and this is your first time, be sure to check out One Wolf 902. That's who we're picking at here, Jeremy.
The
Yeah,
more you watch him, the more he's out camping, the easier it is for me to steal his shit.
the better chance we have of being able to slip in and take stuff without him noticing. Yeah, so it doesn't rust, no seasoning, no bacteria. Stay out of the wolf den. But yeah, no, that's one of the big things with titanium in general. There's very little maintenance to it. It's almost impossible to scratch it up to the point where it's unusable. It's got great durability for crushing, banging, denting, stuff like that. You don't have to season it like you would have to cast iron. It's not going to rust like it would any of the stainless steels, potentially if you get a bad set. Or the cast iron. It's just, like I said, it's kind of that golden standard, but you do pay for it. It's
Yeah.
not cheap for that standard. You know what I mean?
And it can be crushed. It's not super strong.
No, but it's more durable than its aluminum counterpart for sure. And I would grantedly say it's probably a little tougher than the stainless steel.
Uh, if you take my titanium fork, knife, and spoon, I think I can bend that easier than I would an equivalent weight aluminum or steel.
Oh, okay. See, I thought it was a little tougher. But
Um, I think it's more scratch resistant,
yeah, I
but
know it's very tough
so
in any
there's some
case.
interesting properties to it. But I was surprised at how easy my fork, knife, and spoon have bent, and it's easy to straighten out. It's not never bent to the point of like damaging it, but I do know like slight deflection just sometimes when I'm carrying it and stuff. So,
That's fair.
um, but it's definitely a quality product, and I think it's something that if you're spending a lot of time in the woods, it's worth looking at and potentially investing. Uh, I mentioned this to you. I should bring this up again. With all these titanium products, I don't set to one brand. I know that we brought up, I think, Bombardier Voyager or something.
Yeah.
Um, and I may actually, one of these might actually be that brand. I got a Tokes one here. There's a few brands out there that are pretty well known. Uh, but look on Amazon, look around for the pot size you want. You can usually find quite a variance in price. You can easily save yourself 10, $15 on the same pot, just depending on what name. And look for the functions you want on it. Some have the baling wire, some don't. Some have the handle, some don't. Some people like the handle, some don't. Some people like the baling wire, some don't. Get what you want, get what you need. I do like the option, so I tend to go with both if I can get it. I like to be able to hang it. I like to be able to hold on to it like a mug. Um, and for the extra couple of grams, it's not that big of a deal. And honestly, if it really, really bothers you, um, they're not set in stone that they have to stay there. You can usually uh, take them off if you don't like it. So, for instance, here I'll show you. Here's my pot. If I really didn't want my baling wire, I just take it off. It's not a big deal. And the little clips that are left there aren't adding that much weight, but it gives me that functionality. I can save a few grams by replacing this with thinner wire, just a piece of lock wire, but it's not worth it to me. Um, so there's some thoughts, my thoughts, my 2 cents worth on it. Um,
I had one last honorable mention for me that I want to throw in, and I already talked to you about this one as before. And I throw it in as an entire set, and I have a disclaimer about the set already, because you can kind of see up there it's 3.5 out of 5, which is fine. I mean, that's an okay rating, 3 to 7, I guess, 3.7 out of 5. Um, so for this entire kit here, you get a 2 pots pan. It comes in different varieties, but they all have 2 things in common, or 3 things in common generally. You're gonna get this pan, this teapot, and this large pot. Now, depending on
sometimes those two,
oh, sorry.
sometimes those teapots have a coffee perk in them too, eh?
Sometime, yes, you can get them, but you can pull. I drink tea. I'm a big tea drinker, so
Me
I
too.
had the perk part of mine. I got rid of it. Not gonna lie, I took it out. I have no idea where it is anymore. I'm terrible,
Pretty
but
sure
yeah, you can get them with the
mine's in the
coffee
basement.
burner.
I never use it either. But
But yeah, you're gonna get these three things, and these three things are okay. But these two things, this large pot and this teapot, I still use them now. And I bought a set of these. I was trying to figure it out while we were talking here, and it has to be 18 years ago now. And I paid a little less than what they're paying here for. They're saying it's 82.64. You can buy the set that I got. Mine was the coffee pot, the big pot, the frying pan, four cups, and two plates, maybe, or maybe four plates. I can't remember all what was in it. But I keep coming back to the teapot and this large pot. The teapot is amazing for just sitting, like if you build a rock pit, set it on the rocks beside it with a couple tea bags full of water, and you got tea the entire time you're in camp.
yeah,
I'm very old school that way. Where I grew up, my grandparents, my parents, there was always a pot of tea on the stove. You didn't dump it and make new tea. You threw more tea bags in and out of water. So, I mean, by the end of the day, your tea is so thick you can almost, stand on it, which is great. That's what you need at the end of the night, just kind of keep you going. I still love that. There's a lot of nostalgia about that, and I still love that for this teapot. And I mean, I did say that enamel chips and stuff, and out of all of the pieces, the big pot and the teapot have held up the best. I am just starting to get a little bit of chipping in the big pot. And for the big pot, on top of that, it's the one I take anytime I take anybody out in the woods. So have taken Melissa's family out camping. Her mother, significant other, her sister, her significant other. There's two other couples that we potentially go camping with. I won't mention their names, but anyway, there's two other couples we go camping with from time to time. Anytime we go with stuff like that, this pot's my go-to. I ditch all my other cooking stuff, minus maybe some a frying pan, and honestly, I never used the one that came with this set. Might be good, might not be. I left mine so long that the handle got a chip in it and it started rusting and went down into it, so I couldn't do anything with it. But anyway, I keep grabbing this pot because it's bigger than it looks in this picture. First of all, it sits great on coals. You can set it beside the fire. I think I took this when Mel and I went out this year. Actually, now that I can think of it, I know I did. I took this pot, and it holds enough food that you can comfortably feed four people. You might not be gorged to the gills, but you are full. Um, and it's just a great pot. I started using it hanging it. And I think if you look in some of the pictures we have up on the Atlantic Bushcraft stuff, you actually see this pot hanging from a stick above a fire. I can't remember where the picture is, but I know it's on there. And this is I keep going back to this pot. It's just a great pot. It doesn't do a lot of stuff well, like if you're going out by yourself. It's big, it's hard to carry, it makes a lot of noise. But if you're going into a camp situation, you really can't beat this pot, in all honesty, if you can pick one up at a good price. I myself would not buy this $83 kit to get that one pot. It's not that good. But like I said, I bought my entire kit for I think it was $34. And the teapot and the pot together are well worth the 34 bucks. I would pay $30 to $40 for those two items together. 100% sure if I knew I was going to some sort of base camp location. Um, but yeah, so back burner, honorable mention. If you happen to see either this teapot or this pot floating in like a Value Village or at a flea market or a yard sale, or they happen to sell them individually at a big box store or something like that, give it a real hard look if it's a real good price. Because if you intend to go out in groups, I don't think you're going to be disappointed with either of those.
no, I have the kettle myself, and I have the cups. I still use them. A funny story. So we were camping last weekend in Keji. Chris's young father was going up and down the river, and he came back with an enamel plate that could have come from one of those sets. And I'm walking up later, and I pull out of the river a small, short cup. It's not the same one I got. It's a little wider, uh, little shorter. Uh, and man, it's still in usable condition. I could have easily cleaned it up and used it. And that was probably in the river for anywhere from a year to years with no real sign of wear.
And I think that's the cups I got, are the shorter but fatter ones, because mine almost resemble short soup bowls.
Yeah. Um, no, a solid set. I did want to just throw out to people like Mark Young and Rob and all these other people that listen. You heard it here from me and Robert. Real men drink tea. But so you
Sam
guys can keep.
agrees with us. I know that. I can't pronounce his last name, but I know Sam agrees with us.
So just throwing that out there. Real men drink tea.
I thought maybe I could find some other of those kits with the different parts, but apparently not so much. But yeah, they do sell them with the plates and cups and stuff like that.
I think the nice thing with those enamel sets, though, it's very nostalgic. Like I said, it's kind of what there's the cup, the blue one. You get the black one, and
Yeah,
there's
mine
a
was black but shorter and fatter.
yeah, mine are that size and shape. And I actually take those rubber wristbands that they're silicone wristbands that everyone was wearing there for a
Yep.
while. I get those. I put around the lip to prevent me from burning
Oh,
my
from
lip.
burning yourself. Yeah, that would actually make a lot of sense.
They snap in right in around underneath the lip of mine. Um, so
And slightly off topic, but because it is up there for 633, that's actually not a bad price for one of those enamel cups. You can get them cheaper, don't get me wrong, but that's not a bad price if you're looking for a camp cup.
it's
Uh,
not. And its weight is not as far off from the titanium set as you would think with the
what's
lid on.
this? It's saying the weight's 567 grams, which seems really high.
No, that's not right. No,
Not at
it doesn't
all.
work.
So I was going to say mine is, you don't even notice it.
You can
Item
go to
weight
dollar store.
113 grams. There we go.
That's more like it. Go down to the dollar store and you can pick up an oversized enamel one like that with a funny saying on it for 3, $4.
Yeah. As long as it's enamel, you're good.
Yeah. The one I have also has like the stainless steel lip, but
Oh, kind of like this one I just seen down here.
yeah, that's more the style of mine.
Yeah.
Either way, um, not a bad price, not a bad item, and it's just kind of nostalgic. Um, Definitely kind of looks. It looks good in pictures. I tell you that when you set up a little campsite and you got that little cup, it kind of looks like it's better looking to me than a cheap plastic cup or some of the other things that people have now. The insulated mugs and all that. Those enamel cups, they just have a traditional feel to them that's hard
Just
to
give me
beat.
1 second there, Ben. Keep chatting, bud.
Um, so, uh, just checking our time here. So we've gone over our hour quite well. But no, I think we've covered a lot of information here. We've talked about different pots and stuff, and I think we could definitely talk for hours more. We didn't really get into the fry pan systems and stuff, but uh, it's definitely something for people to think about this listening. And I'd love to hear your opinions, what you guys use. Some of you, I may already know what you're using. I may have seen it, but for those I haven't,
I
what's
thought,
Robert got?
nah, I thought I had one of those enamel cups right there. I found 3 other cook sets I didn't know that were in that shelf, but I did not find the cup.
Well, I could put my hands on ones in seconds, but I'm not going to do it. Maybe next show I'll bring them up and I'll weigh them against my titanium just so we can do a true comparison right here on the show.
Yeah, I can
Uh,
weigh one of mine too and see if there's any difference.
yeah, but no, like I said, there's a lot to think about. Cook system is a very important part of any trip because to me, food makes or breaks a trip more so than even weather, uh, and only less so than company. if if that makes sense. Good if you have good food and good company, weather is irrelevant. If you have poor food and no company, weather is going to drive you nuts. So just to give you an idea, when in the hierarchy, I think it's company, and that company can be yourself. If you are good company to yourself, then just being out there by yourself, that's great company. You got a good buddy or a good couple of people to talk to, that's great. Then food makes that even better, and then the weather is like a third or fourth thing on the list there, really. Uh, just so your cook system, it really determines on what you can do and how you can do it. So take a few minutes to think about it. Don't have to spend a fortune, but you definitely need to know what you're doing and have a plan before you leave. And we've presented a lot of, I think, good options. And look at thrift stores. Look at all the, you can find great camp cookware almost anywhere. Um, Surprisingly, where you'll find it actually.
You find a lot of great stuff at Value Village. A buddy of mine, every time he walks into Value Village, seems to get something amazing.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah, no, that is true, and sometimes you'll even find like the odd thing. Like you'll still occasionally find things like titanium pots and aluminum pots, and you'll definitely find those enamel cups and stuff. And you should find those kettles in a lot of them. Keep your eye open. A lot of that stuff is definite bargains in those places. Uh, Flea markets and yard sales are also great places to pick this stuff up. People buy this stuff, they store it for years, and then they toss it. And it's hardly used.
yeah,
So
decided that, oh, it never gets used. It's time to get rid of it.
yeah, this is the stuff you can pick up. Really save yourself a lot of money over buying new. I don't necessarily recommend buying all your camping gear new. A lot of the stuff can easily be picked up, used, and in great condition. Um, I, if I had to say one thing, try to find gear that nests well. It doesn't have to be designed to nest well. You can often find pots from totally different manufacturers, totally different styles that fit together. You can find pots that'll take your Nigene bottles quite well, or whatever water bottle system you're taking. Find things that nest, that pack together really tight, don't have a lot of wasted space. Find stuff that fits within them. Like I showed you my aluminum pot, and I had that wood burning stove inside of it. It makes a nice compact setup. You know, it's a dense setup. Like there's a lot of weight in here, but I I do carry like inside my little stove, which opens up to quite a big item, and I've shown on this show before. But I also can fit a little aluminum alcohol cook setup inside of this too. So I have two cook systems, two like stove systems, and a pot all in one item. And in and around there, I'll put a few tea bags and a couple of oatmeals and stuff. So when this leaves, this is a solid thing, and it holds a lot of stuff for me. So when you get something that nests well, doesn't take up a lot of room in your pack, that's that's a that's a big thing for me. I, bulk and bulk and weight are two killers. If you can get your bulk down, you can get your weight down. You got a smaller pack and a more comfortable trip.
No, 100%. And I think with that, we are at about 1 hour, 12 minutes. We knew it was going to be a long topic when we came into it, though. And honestly, we only started to get going about it. We tried to stay on topic and keep going forward. This topic could encompass at least another show, if not a couple more shows, just on different aspects of it. So, bottom line is, we're just here to give you a little bit of information. You're going to have to do a little digging, but hopefully, we pointed you at least in a direction instead of just spinning in circles. Which, with a decent cook pot, once you get out in the woods and learn that just grabbing a pot from under the cupboard or wherever you keep your pots and just dragging it in the woods, it's really not the best deal for cooking out in the woods. Usually it's not anyway. There are a few exceptions to that, and that's a different show again, but
Yeah. Um, but no, there's a lot of things to do. I mean, we could spend a whole show just talking on utensils, no doubt about it, right? And the difference between a titanium set, a bamboo set, plastic set from McDonald's. Like just go to McDonald's and steal their fork, knife, and spoon. You're not going to actually find something that's much more lightweight than that.
I still have.
Durability.
Do you remember the old KFC sporks?
Yeah.
I still got like three of those in my cubbyhole.
Um, the Blizzard spoon is actually really good for like the Mountain House meals, like the
Yep.
dehydrated high packs, long and thin and fairly sturdy actually. So yeah, if you want to, there's your cheapest, lightest weight setup right there for utensils, honestly. Um, but the durability is not there. You're only going to get a few trips before the fork breaks a few tines off of it, and the spoon has a crack in it, and the knife is no longer straight. And it won't really cut anything, so it's good for spreading
Providing it was
butter.
all good when you arrived on scene anyway. Because I've
Yeah,
thrown them in my backpack with intentions to use them, and they came out warped, just
yeah,
from the heat of the day or whatever. So once again, trade offs there, and that we kind of talked about that with pots. It's very true with any of your gear, honestly, including utensils.
yeah.
But yeah, I think an hour and a quarter is a good spot to shut her down. And maybe we'll
Yep.
bring this topic up again. Maybe not as the gear of the month, but maybe as just a free for all. We'll get some people on. Maybe that'll be a good one for Jeremy to come on, seeing he has that nice $500 walk. And maybe.
I think Jeremy should come out and cook us a nice meal with that
I
walk. I
agree.
really.
I think he should take that walk out, cook us all. We'll invite some friends. We'll get Chris and we'll get Gary and, we'll get Red Bear and a few other people. And we'll all go out and Jeremy can make us a nice meal and prove to us that the walk is the be all to end all. I was wondering if he was still listening. He is. But yeah, so I think for us tonight, or at least for me, that's it. And I hope everybody has a good time and hope you learn something.
Night all. Get out there, have fun, stay safe.
Night, everybody.